It's common sense, the common sense of the common people united for our common home.
And that's why my common sense plan is to axe the tax.
Who is Pierre Poilievre? What does he promise? And does he actually deliver?
The federal Canadian elections are coming soon. And as a new Canadian who will be voting for the first time, I want to do my due diligence on who I will be voting for. So in this video, I want to share with you what I've learned about Pierre Poilievre.
And if you want to learn more about Mark Carney, we have a separate video right here. Pierre Poilievre has been in politics since 2004. And 18 years later, in 2022, he's made some unprecedented moves that secured one of the most confident conservative leadership victories in the history of Canadian politics. Born in 1979 in Calgary, Alberta, he was adopted as a baby by schoolteachers of a Franco-Albertan descent. Raised in a household that valued hard work and personal responsibility, Poilievre rather quickly found a voice among Canada's restless middle class, tapping into a sense of frustration. This has become central to his political brand. As a student of the University of Calgary, he studied international relations, though it's the campus politics that captured his attention the most. He joined the Reform Party early, which then became the Canadian Alliance, which then evolved into today's Conservative Party. Pierre's profile is one of the most traditional representations of a career politician, having held just one or two jobs outside of the political context. Along with his conservative views, his adoptive family instilled values of hard work, self-reliance, personal responsibility, and skepticism of big government. When he was 19, he wrote a rather curious opinion piece titled "Building Canada Through Freedom," published in 1999. Let's see how his views changed. Poilievre advocated for lowering taxes to stimulate economic growth and give financial freedom back to workers and entrepreneurs. And up until this day, tax cuts and free market economy remain core to Poilievre's political platform. He also called for reducing the sphere of influence of the government and promoting democracy through a fair province representation in the Senate and a reduced Prime Minister power. Pierre's stance on most issues discussed here still remains true. But there's at least one idea that draws a chasm between his action and words. As Mr. Poilievre discussed decentralization of federal powers, he envisioned a term limit for members of parliament to prevent career politicians from clinging to power and losing touch with everyday Canadians. And he made a personal commitment to resign after 2 terms. Fast forward to today, and Poilievre has been an MP for over 20 years, winning re-election time and time again. Critics point to this as a clear contradiction, suggesting that he's abandoned one of his earliest principles. Supporters, however, argue that what mattered wasn't the exact number of terms, but the spirit of the idea.
But nobody breathed easier than Conservative Member of Parliament Pierre Poilievre, who will now qualify for a full pension the same month he turns 31. Pierre Poilievre, the workers of Canada salute you.
Congratulations, Pierre.
At just 25 years old, Pierre Poilievre pulled off a major win in the riding of Nepean-Carleton under the Harper government. What made it remarkable wasn't just his age. It was that he defeated the sitting Minister of National Defense and a prominent Liberal cabinet member. That victory was something special at the time. So what did rookie Pierre do to achieve such a win? Recruiting volunteers, showing up at local events, and knocking on thousands of doors. While others saw that as outdated and time-consuming, he leaned into it, betting on face-to-face conversations with suburban neighborhoods, where taxes, spending, and trust in government were top of mind. So, once in the office, what did he focus on? One of Poilievre's early legislative wins was his role in the Federal Accountability Act. This was the Harper government's response to the Liberal sponsorship scandal, which uncovered public funds being funneled to Liberal-friendly advertising firms in Quebec.
$5,000 in, $5,000 out, in, out, letter explain.
The act sought to tighten Ottawa's rules, banning corporate and union donations, cracking down on lobbyists and protecting whistleblowers, and giving more power to Auditor General. This act gave Poilievre an early spotlight. He quickly earned a reputation as a sharp, relentless MP known for his disciplined messaging and well-rehearsed attacks.
Said the NDP would respect sovereignty, and now one of the separatist members in the NDP has gone to join the bloc. Mr. Speaker, is it the NDP over there or the NDPQ?
And we see this up until this day today, with catchy phrases, simple and accessible messages. Within his first years as MP, Mr. Poilievre voted against raising federal minimum wage, citing that government should not intervene on matters of wages, as well as supported bills that sought to revisit abortion laws, initially taking a pro-life stance on the matter. However, this stance had evolved over time, and by the time Pierre became leader of Conservative Party, he's expressed generally pro-choice support.
When the 2008 financial crisis hit, Pierre Poilievre got another chance to prove himself. He was appointed to a special panel to reform Canada's employment insurance system, a joint effort between the Prime Minister Stephen Harper and Liberal leader Michael Ignatieff. The goal was to support the thousands of Canadians facing sudden job loss. Despite the urgency and high-profile collaboration, the panel ultimately led nowhere.
Mission failed.
No major reforms came out of it, and it faded into the background as just another flashy political gesture in a time of crisis. When the world calmed down, Poilievre took on a behind-the-scenes role supporting Canada's transport and infrastructure files. You'd think that he'd focus on roads, bridges, rail, or job creation during those economically uncertain times, but no, Poilievre zeroed in on union rules. Why would he do that? Out of all the issues that he could have taken on, why go to bat over how unions collect dues? For Pierre, this was about freedom and control. These are the two things that he talks about more than just about anyone in Canadian politics. Critics, though, saw it as picking an ideological battle that played well with his conservative base, but did quite little to address more immediate and tangible economic concerns at that time. Instead of focusing on physical and economic recovery side, like investing in transit, speeding up infrastructure bills, new housing, or creating jobs, he pushed for transparency in union finances. And whether you see it as principled or performative, it marked an early example of Poilievre choosing fights that signal where he stands, even if the outcome is not tangible.
He played it safe, but not until 2014, when he took on a role as a Minister of State for Democratic Reform, where some might say controversy started. Pierre's main project was the Fair Elections Act. On the one hand, Pierre introduced stricter voter ID requirements by eliminating the vouching system. Voters now needed to present physical ID that had both name and address. On the other hand, critics, including former chief electoral officers, academics, and even some conservatives, called it a power grab designed to make voting harder for young and marginalized Canadians, since many young, low-income and Indigenous voters didn't always have a photo ID. The act also prohibited Elections Canada from running public campaigns to encourage voter turnout, essentially restricting the agency to providing only technical information about when, where, and how to vote, all while banning it from promoting the importance of voting itself.
The goal of the bill is to keep democracy in the hands of everyday Canadians by putting special interests on the sidelines and rule breakers out of business. It's a common sense bill that closes loopholes to big money and makes it more difficult to vote fraudulently.
At the time, all this cemented Poilievre's reputation as a ruthless political operator, willing to pick a fight, and taught him an early lesson he uses till this day. Controversy keeps you in the headlines.
In 2015, just months before the Harper government's defeat, Poilievre was promoted to Minister of Employment and Social Development. That gave him a national responsibility for jobs, training, and benefits. But he didn't get to do much because Liberals took over in the 2015 elections.
We had one home for every 1.5 new people, and that was a housing surplus. I was housing minister.
Wait, was he the housing minister? No, Pierre Poilievre never formally held the role of Canada's housing minister, though he briefly touched on housing-related programs as the Minister of Employment and Social Development.
The disappointment you also feel is my responsibility and mine alone. But know this for certain, when the next time comes, this party will offer Canadians a strong and clear alternative based on our conservative values.
October 19, 2015. Stephen Harper's Conservatives lose after nearly a decade in power. Similarly to today's criticism of the last decade of the Liberal Party, Canadians were fed up with the Conservatives back then. What happens next wasn't just a political comeback, it was a calculated 4-year campaign to bring the Conservatives back to the game. Poilievre went underground and resurfaced around 2016, when he started flooding social media with attacks on Trudeau's deficits, sometimes numerous times a day. This becomes his testing ground for what we now know as Poilievre populism. Populism isn't left or right, it's a political style. At its core, it's about pitting the people against a so-called corrupt elite. Simple slogans, big emotions, and a leader who claims only they can fix the system. Here's how it works. First, you identify the villain, which is usually the politicians, the media, or the experts. Next, you promise easy solutions with simple slogans like "axe the tax" or "build the wall." And finally, you attack institutions like courts, central banks, and public health agencies, since they are seen as part of the elite establishment, so they must be working against the people.
In 2017, Poilievre gets appointed as shadow finance critic. As finance critic, Poilievre pioneers a new attack strategy: relentless, hyper-specific questioning.
Mr. Speaker, the budget contains a bunch of inflated numbers for job creation. I wonder if the Finance Department did any calculation on job losses with this tax hike.
In 2017, he grills Bill Morneau for days and days on small business tax changes, a preview of his later common sense messaging. What happens next can probably be seen as one of the most impressive developments in Canadian politics. YouTube becomes a significant party platform for Pierre. While Conservative Party leader of that time, Erin O'Toole, gives scripted speeches, Pierre is posting 10-minute monologues about inflation, racking up 5 times more views than the official Conservative channel. While Pierre Poilievre was busy making nerdy documentaries about the Canadian economy, Erin O'Toole's leadership went up in flames.
You know, there you go. Erin O'Toole, I guess, is out as leader. The source that I just saw sent me a message just saying he lost. 2 words, that's it.
O'Toole failed to take a firm stance on the key ideological issues that were top of mind at the time, proving that trying to please everyone often pleases no one. O'Toole's tenure ended with his resignation on February 5, 2022.
Within 72 hours of O'Toole's resignation, Poilievre launched his campaign at an Ottawa gas station.
I want to put you back in control of your life. Make this the freest country on earth. What do you think?
That's a very good idea.
The location wasn't spontaneous. It was the opening move in a campaign that would make affordability its central theme. As a result, Poilievre's campaign quickly signed up over 300,000 new members, surpassing the total memberships of all other candidates combined. And when the results came in for the new Conservative leader elections, he won by a landslide, securing 68% of the vote. Why did he win? Angry middle class and anti-Trudeau sentiment. Whether you love him or hate him, it was the most disciplined political rehabilitation in modern Canadian history, perhaps.
So, all the political games aside, which Pierre is obviously really good at, what has Pierre done for the country? And most importantly, if elected, what will he do?
Let's look at his platform. And for some reason, it's not available at the official website at the time of recording this video, just a couple of weeks ahead of elections. So we had to dig around.
Let's start with economic policy.
So this one is probably one of the loudest slogans, axe the tax. What Mr. Poilievre pledges is to cut the lowest income tax bracket from 15 to 12.75%, framing it as a relief for working Canadians. Economists question whether this will drive significant change, or whether it's just another political gimmick.
Next goes tax-free savings account enhancement. One of Pierre's latest propositions is to increase the annual TFSA contribution limit by $5,000 for investments made specifically in Canadian businesses, encouraging domestic investment. Note that this would only apply to less than 8% of Canadians. Most of Canadians do not have their TFSAs maxed out, and 30% don't even have this account open.
We also can't ignore the carbon tax, which has been one of the most polarizing issues in Canada. A core Conservative promise is to scrap the federal carbon price as a way to lower the cost of living and combat inflation. It might be a great idea, but some critics argue that blaming today's economic challenges solely on carbon tax is highly misleading. After all, the entire world has been dealing with inflation, rising living costs, and housing crisis. Looking at the carbon tax in isolation oversimplifies a more complex global issue.
Speaking of which, let's zoom into housing. Pierre pledges to cut GST on new homes under 1.3 million, aiming to spur construction. Analysts debate whether this helps renters or just drive demands even higher.
Here's another really cool idea that Mr. Poilievre is actually suggesting. He wants to tie municipal infrastructure funds to home building, meaning that cities must boost construction by a certain percentage yearly or lose the federal cash funding. This is bold, but might actually work.
However, what happens if cities are simply not able to do that because they are already tight on cash?
When it comes to crime and justice, Mr. Poilievre wants to be tough on crime generally. One of the things that he wants to do is to detain repeat offenders. Critics, on the other hand, argue that this may just lead to overcrowded jails without really addressing the root cause of crime.
Next goes police funding. Mr. Poilievre also suggested to withhold funds from cities that cut police budgets, further reinforcing his tough on crime stance.
When it comes to energy, Mr. Poilievre pledges to streamline approvals for oil, gas, and mining projects, arguing for energy pragmatism. This aspect freaks environmentalists out, but excites a generally pro-economic growth crowd, especially in the current tariff environment.
Now to immigration reform. Mr. Poilievre is known for inciting generally immigration-skeptical moods in Canada.
One of the things that he suggests is to link immigration to housing. He suggests to cap newcomers based on home construction rates, prioritizing skilled workers, which makes total sense. Critics, on the other hand, call it an overly simplistic solution for complex labor needs in the country, since the country still needs a low-skilled labor en masse.
We would also add that one of the brightest profiles of Pierre Poilievre is his anti-establishment tone. He attacks elite gatekeepers and woke policies, pitching himself as the voice of ordinary Canadians. Some see it as rhetoric over substance, and some are finally glad to see an experienced, common-sense politician to enter the stage. But it's up for you to decide on April 28th.
Pierre Poilievre has proven to be a really good critic, who's not afraid to attack and challenge his opponents. But will he make a good leader and, most importantly, builder of this country?
This guy is the most effective opposition leader Canada has seen in years. But he is a career politician to the core.
But the real test is coming. We'll see how he's able to adjust to the curveball that is Mark Carney or the Trump's tariffs that are all over the place.
The next election could be one of the most defining moments in Canada's political history.
What do you think? Do you think that Pierre Poilievre will be good for Canada? Let us know in the comments. And if you're interested to know more about who Mark Carney is in a similar fashion, we've made a video covering Mark Carney's profile as well. You can just click on this video and we will see you there. Take care.